Hi everyone, delonewolf here, and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And we've had a pretty nice week last week with quite a bit of drama. First of all, we had a very nice live event on Friday. That video should be coming out on Monday. Then we had a lot of nullsec drama with some serious discussion between CCP and some of the players in nullsec. Although I'm not entirely up to speed on that. Yeah, we're expecting more live events next week as well, since it has been announced that the new Amar battleship is going to be deployed for the first time next week on Friday. So yeah, hopefully we'll get another nice live event out of that. We're here for the market, of course, so let's just jump right in that regional market, go for my quick bar, and we'll start with plex at 50 seconds. Plex have gone down a little bit, so they are at 986. There was a few plex at 984 when I was checking everything out for the banner at the bottom. So although there is a slight pullback in the price of plex, you can see it right here, the 5-day moving average crossing 20-day moving average clearly coming down from, well, very close to the 1 billion mark. These plexes are being snagged up pretty quickly from the looks of it, so I don't think it's going to be a very sustained decrease in price for plex, but it's a little bit less, and that's always good news, I guess. Let's see if this is also translated in the multiple pilot trading certificate. Unfortunately, those are at more than a billion 30 million already, 970 million for the buyers, and you can see that one took a little bit of a jump up. So the fact that the multiple pilot trading certificate here has jumped up and seems to still be going up indicates to me that this fall back in plex here is actually going to be pretty short-lived. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe a good sale or something like that could finally break these upward trends a little bit, but it's very hard to tell, honestly. The body pilot resculpt, that one is still doing its own thing. Now it's back up again towards 210 million. As you can see here, 214 million for the sellers, 181 for the buyers. Pretty decent margin on that, but you can see that the volumes are very low, so it's a pretty risky business to actually try and make trade money, in my opinion. Alright, next up, the bread and butter of New Eden, the minerals, and that would be 230. Let's take a look at those, because titanium is actually moving back up a little bit, and so you can clearly see now that it's averaging right around the 5.2 ISK mark, a little bit above that, a little bit below that, but this is a sign of a decently stable market, with well-supplied market as well, with robust demand. So the fact that we're back up the 5.2 mark is actually very good news, in my opinion. It indicates that we may be in for at least a stable period for these minerals, in my opinion, until the new structures hit. Then these could turn out to be pretty good investments. So we're talking 525 for the sellers, but that's a bit of a smaller order, but 526, 527. Pretty big orders here, 400 million, 900 million here. And then we've got the demand side, 650 million, 400 million here, a billion here. So not that many very new orders, a bit more on the sell order side, so I think people are indeed trying to take advantage of the slightly higher prices. But once this dips below 5.2 again, I think we'll see demand pick up the slack, and then we'll move back up above that. So yep, titanium indicating a stable high-sec mineral market at the moment. Let's see if pyrite is following suit. Pyrite went down a little bit too low, in my opinion, below 10.8. So with a bit of jumping, we are now back right under 11 ISK. So that's not bad, I think. And if again you look at the average since, let's say, June, you're pretty much around the 11 ISK mark. We're talking 10.8 for the sellers, 10.7 for the buyers. So that margin has completely closed. And just below 11 ISK. It's not a very high price, but at least it seems like we are going to be stable around this price mark. Supply demand here, 340 million, 734 million, although that again is a little bit of an older order, and then on the new order is here. We've got 138, 188, another 100, so another 400, 500 million coming in here, very new. So there is still a little bit more supply here as well, just like with titanium, I think. There's more new orders in the supply, so this puts a little bit of pressure, but as you can see, we're also coming off of a slightly higher price. So I think that that's actually normal and healthy. Next up, we've got Mexalon. Ooh, trend breaker. What the hell? That's unexpected. We would have expected Mexalon to maybe get up to 44 ISK and then hover back down a little bit, but no, clearly a bit of a breakout. Let's see where the sellers are at. 49 ISK for the sellers, 48.34 for the buyers. They have followed very closely. That's actually quite surprising. What would be the reason behind that? I don't really have an idea. Maybe finally some people are indeed starting to stockpile some minerals in expectations of the new citadels, which that's also one of the new things that happened last week. Is we had 2 dev blogs on that. Maybe I'll cover it. It'll depend on how high the activity is gonna be next week. But yeah, we also got more information on the citadels, so that could be a reason why we'll see some breakouts here and there on some of the minerals. We'll have to see if Mexalon can actually maintain this higher price of around 49 ISK. New supply, yeah, that's a lot of new supply, of course, trying to take advantage of those new higher prices, but the fact that the buyers have gone up as well and have closed the gap right away could be an indication that Mexalon could start going sideways here, or maybe we're in an uptrend for it for some reason. It's possible as well, but very interesting, something that's a little bit unexpected in my book, except from the idea that maybe we'll invest in some minerals now in preparation of the new structures. So here is Isogen, also do a bit of a jump up towards 115, but you can see that that one is tapering off. Still, it looks like the price is gonna meet at around 110, which is substantially higher than the 100 to 105 where we've been for quite a while before. So Isogen 111.3 is for the sellers, 108.7 for the buyers. So again, margin pretty damn close. Decently new supply here because we come off of a high point, and the buyers are actually getting filled out by people that are willing to sell at these prices. So all of the high-sec minerals have actually come off of a pretty high point. They're pulling back just a little bit, except for Mexalon. That one is still forming its stop on the chart, but I think it's gonna happen right now, considering the amount of new orders we're seeing here. And I will have to see how things stabilize next week. It's possible, I think, that Mexalon and Isogen will pull back towards their previous ranges, but it is also possible that they will actually settle a little bit higher if the demand can actually indeed increase because of the new structures. That's my theory behind all of it. Next up, Noxium. Unfortunately, I think that the downward trend has stalled here. I tried to pick some up even lower than this price, but I don't think that I have them. So Noxium actually going back up a little bit towards 480. That one is stopping its downward trend finally. 484 for the sellers, 470 for the buyers. As you can see, not a lot of margin here either. There's quite a bit of new orders here. As you can see, pretty much 2/3 of this front page are new orders of 1.5 to 2 million, even 4 and 3 million units. But there is still decent demand here as well. So we're seeing quite a few recent orders here as well. Here's a 10 million order, a 1 million order, but it is a bit more scattered. So I'm curious to see. There is still really big supply, despite the fact that the price has not gone up substantially. If demand rise up a little bit, then we could go back lower for Noxium, and then there's no telling how low it might go. If, however, demand does start to pick up at this point, it may just be that this is gonna have been the bottom for Noxium. That only time will be able to tell that. Next up, let's check out some null-6 stuff. Here is Zydrine managing to maintain a price above 1400. That's not bad, and that compared to Megasite, which is clearly dropping off now. So we had tops of almost 2400 ISK here and here. 2300 maybe a bit more accurate on the 5-day moving average, but now we are clearly trending down quite substantially towards 1600. The only question is going to be, what's the actual bottom going to be? Sellers are already at 1589 and the buyers at 1561. You never know when this is actually going to stop. So if you want some Megasite, depending on what your expectation is, it could be a good idea to move in on this downward trend. I think I may actually invest some in some Megasite at this point. Next up, we still have more fight. I'll touch on that, but that one is actually managing to maintain a price of around 12,000 ISK at the moment. So the big spike up together with Megasite Megasite and Zydrine, I'm sorry. Well, it's pretty much managed to maintain a pretty high price here. There's nothing too special to report. It's also not really in line with the other minerals which are used for all of the Tech 1 stuff. Morphite is a little bit different from them, so I'm not all that familiar with the Morphite market and what it's used for, so that's why I don't always check that one when checking the minerals. Alright, next up the Tech 1 market. Let's see if there's an impact on that. 10 minutes 30 for that one. Let's take a look here at the Apocalypse. So after a bit of a hype period on some of the bigger ships, we did come back towards the same average we had 6 months ago for most of the ships. I think that's where we left off at, and here you can see that the Apocalypse is again coming in at 176 million. It's a bit of variation, but really there's nothing all too drastic to report. Maybe one thing, 20-day moving average clearly moving up here, and again 5-day moving average is going to meet it. If this would go back up, we could be on an uptrend for the Apocalypse, but considering the momentum, I think we are going to cross this here, and we're going to pull back the 20-day moving average at this point, and a movement between 174 and 176 million on the long range 20-day moving average, I think, is what I'm betting on. That could happen here. So unless that one really starts to break out, I think we're back in these normal averages, which you can see right here is what happened before. Next up here, the Caracal finally coming down a little bit. Now it's already touching 11 million. Clearly the 20-day moving average going down from 12.5 towards 11 million. Here we do seem to be settling, but that does put us back very close to the 6 month average we had before. So here we start at 10.5 million, now we're ending at 11 million. So again, a bit of a high period for the Caracal, quite a bit of variation as well because of mass buying by Nosec alliances, but we seem to be coming back down, settling back down where we were before. Here is the Dominix then, breaking out a little bit. Still, that's nothing all too drastic just yet, except it's the same with the Apocalypse potentially, but this is a jump from 195 to maybe 201 million or something like that. It's not that big. Let's take a look if supply has responded. No, not yet. Well, actually pretty much half the page here is less than a day old, so you can see that there are some of them coming in trying to take advantage of that, going to push the price down from 202 million for the sellers, 195 for the buyers. So I'm expecting this to be short-lived, but if something actually happens, it could be a sign of a turnaround, of something different in the Tech 1 market. Still, I'm not seeing any fundamentals that would indicate that. Here's the Myrmidon then. After, well, really going to a very low point of 51 million, people don't produce Myrmidons at that price anymore, so now we're going back up to 53 million, and that's okay. I think starting 6 months ago at 52 to 53 million, ending at 53 million, again that stability with maybe some higher price points here between May and like August or something like that, but looks to me like we're actually settling back down on most of the ships in the Tech 1 market. Here's the Oracle then, that one clearly settling at a higher price point. I think that's the same for all of the tier 3 battle cruisers, starting at 74 million. Here we're settling 78 to 80 million. I think that was because of the higher need for Megasite and Zydrine in these ships, but overall still we're coming off of a bit of a low at 76 million, so supply dried up a little bit, and then the price goes back up again. People will see that they're able to sell oracles for more than 80 million again. Supply will start to come back in here, and then we'll go back down. This is a normal market variation in most of these. Stabber showing a very stable period right here since July 1st, just straight in between the 10.6 and the 10.8 million mark. Is it still a healthy market? Well, there's still quite a bit of new orders, and even one of 38 units coming in here, less than 24 hours old. Demand though is slightly drying up, so if supply takes the upper hand, we could actually see a dip here first before going back up. Here's the Tornado. That's a clear example of settling at a higher price for a tier 3 battle cruiser, starting at maybe 66 to 67 million. We're clearly up to 73 here, where we have again that stability of a Tech 1 ship. And then finally here is the Vexor. starting at 11.4, ending at 11.4. In fact, it looks to me like they are almost to the ISK point, right where they started once again. And again here a bit of a period of higher prices, a bit more volatility with all of the mineral changes, but everything seems to have been absorbed by the market and by the increase in price in null-sec minerals and the decrease in price in high-sec minerals. So back where we started, yep, take one market. I don't see any reasons to think that that's gonna change until CCP actually does something drastic again to maybe industry or mining or the resources or something like that. All right, next up the Take 2 market, that would be 1540. Let's see if there's some volatility to be found, some potential trade money. Basilisk, that's pretty interesting. Look at the spike here up to 215, here a spike up to 230, but we are coming back down towards that very low price point of 175 where they tend to take off. So it's always a little bit of a gamble, of course, I'll grant you that, but buy orders below 170 million is potentially, I think, an opportunity to come in the market. There's still quite a bit of supply, as you can see right here, although a lot of it is up to 180, 182 before the first big number in quantity. And so this, I think, is an opportunity to jump in on the Basilisk and then wait for the next spike to try and sell them for a nice profit. So it does happen. It's pretty obvious here, starting at 230 million on the highest price point, maybe even 235 if you look at some of the data points. Now you could pick up Basilisks below 170 if you're a little bit lucky. That's a very nice margin where you could make some nice profit. Here's the Guardian then. A little bit of a spike just happened from 130 to 136, 37 maybe, something like that. So it's not really big enough, I think, to really have made the trade worth it. Although maybe if you bought really low and managed to sell at the highest point, it could have been worth it. But I think it indicates that Guardians could start their volatility at 130 rather than below 120, which we've seen here before. So that's something to keep in mind. You always have to try and find that bottom, time that bottom. That's actually very hard to do. And here for the Guardian, this little spike up here could be an indication that 130 is actually going to become the trigger for the market. Here's the Hound then, again showing some nice potential, starting at 16 million, going up to 19 million, back down close to 16 million, and now working its way back up again. So let's take a look here at supply, starting at 17.5 million. Unfortunately, there's still some pretty big numbers, so I'd say you're a little bit too late to actually try and sell them for the best profit. Maybe if you actually bought them at 16 or below 16 million, you could still try and put them up close to 17 million, but is it still worth it then? I think you're a little bit late on this sell opportunity now. Here's the Manticore then, also again showing very nice volatility, dropping below 22 million, going up to 26 million right here, now dropping back down. Of course, that's a natural correction. I'd say wait for the chart to actually come close to 22 million, then you might have another buy opportunity. Right now we're right in the middle of the top and what I would call the bottom, so I would not make an actual move on the Manticore just yet. Here's the Nemesis settling at 19 million. You can see the opportunities to sell close to 22 million. That's not bad, I think. And you actually have buy orders at 18.1 million. So I think that's an opportunity to maybe invest in some Nemesis stealth bombers. Because well, the buy orders are actually right here close to that bottom, so this could actually be the right time to make a move on them. Here's the Oneros then, again touching a bottom of 135, nice little spike up, but we are in the recovery phase from this, so it's a little bit late to either buy or sell in the Oneros market. Next up here we've got the Purifier. That one is slowly going back down again, breaking 17.5 million. Where are the buy orders at? 16.3. You could probably pick up Purifiers at 16.5 million, which is right here on the chart. So keep an eye on that. A lot of these, I think, are coming close to interesting territory to maybe buy a little bit, wait for an upwards movement, and then try to sell them for some profit. And here is finally the Scimitar. Again, this one is very hard because you don't see any serious spikes except this one right here, which triggered below 120 million. but it is possible, in my opinion, that scimitars will actually settle at 130, and I will only see volatility once the chart goes. That will already see volatility once the chart touches 130 rather than breaking 120, just because I think with the new sovereignty there is a bit more demand for these logistics Take 2 cruisers. So yeah, I think it's a very hard week right now to actually take any profit, because a lot of them are on their way back. But if you have some money to invest, I think some of the stealth bombers are in interesting territory this week. Next up, Tech 3 ships, 2030 for that one. I think we'll not, well, I was expecting not a lot of movement. Here is the first movement since, well, basically the early growing pains of the markets in the Confessor. This is clearly a trend break. Where Confessor were below 34 million, we are now selling them for almost 45 million. So going from 34 to 45 is actually a significant move up here. And there are two possibilities. Well, actually, the only possibility that I see is that I may have been right last week, and that we're finally going to start to see some actual doctrines, some actual fleets in these tactical destroyers, and that this could have been a big buyout move by an alliance that's going to fly some Confessor fleets. And thus we see this respond right here. You can still see that there are really big numbers here: 257, 12, 19, 17, 26, 30, 25. In fact, all of this is less than a day old, so that's hundreds of Confessors coming to the market already, trying to take advantage of those higher prices. But are we finally going to start seeing some of these big buyouts in the tactical destroyers for fleet doctrines? I think it's possible. I think we just saw it happen here in the Confessor. Unless you have another explanation, feel free to put that in the comments, but I think we'll finally start to see that happening, which I think is great for the Tech 3 market in general. Moving that momentum in between 8 chips rather than 4 is going to make it a bit more tricky. It's going to, I think, allow for opportunities on both the selling at a better price and actually buying on very cheap ships if you don't really know where that movement is going to come next. Here's the Hecate then. That one is clearly settling below 40 million, 39 million for the sellers, 37 for the buyers. So it's also a little bit too new of a market. You can see 192, 50, 90, 82. There's plenty of supply to go around. So for now the pressure is on. It's also the newest one, I think, so yeah, not much to report here. Here's the Jackdaw slowly going up to above 40 million on the sellers, probably. Yeah, 41 million for the sellers. Still, you see those big numbers. You see all of those are less than a day old, so that pressure is still on here. And interesting that the Confessor actually made that move. Here's a Legion, a little bit of a jump up, but you can see that that one is being snuffed out quite soon. So from 145 to maybe 152, 53 million, something like that. But I'll bet that 10, 10, 13, they're already coming in here again, an entire front page of new orders. The pressure is here right away, and that's what I mean. The Confessor actually has gotten some legs here. I think because it's the first time it happened in the Confessor market, people are not watching that one like a hawk just yet, and so you have actually a good opportunity to sell at a much better price. Whereas the Legion, well, it's been doing that for so long now that people actually know these and are ready to make their moves on them, and so you see that supply gap being plugged a lot faster in the cruisers, in my opinion. Here's the Loki. The pressure seems to have gotten to the Loki because that one is going to break 145 million. Yeah, 145 and a half on the sellers, 140 for the buyers. Still we see 10, all of these, the entire front page again, are new orders, so you can see that overproduction in the market in general does happen. Hopefully, now that it's going to be spread up among 8 chips rather than 4, we see some more opportunities. And probably now the Loki, buying close to 140 is probably a good opportunity to buy some cheap Lokis if you actually want them. And next up here we've got the Proteus. Again, that spike up to 165 million has been snuffed out by the increased production. We're back to 150 where we started. Yeah, the pressure is it still on here? Yeah, we still see all of this less than a day old. Look at that, and still we see pretty big numbers coming in. So the competition tends to be in the sell orders for the Tech 3 market, putting that pressure on. And so we saw that in the Proteus right here. Here's the Zwepel then. settling at like 45 million. Is it going to go down? I think so. Let's take a look at supply numbers here. 101, 13, 26. All of this up to, well, less than a day old, still less than a day old. And here we finally have one that's, I thought I saw one of 88, but it's not here yet. There it is. So all of this is actually new. Again, hundreds of vehicles coming in, putting that pressure on here. So that little spike up here, it's a little bit slower to come back down. I guess there is robust demand for these tactical destroyers. This vehicle is also a pretty damn good ship. But it's going to be interesting to see how the tech tree market is going to move in general. I think now that we finally see one of those moves on one of the tactical destroyers. And then finally the Tengu going back down a little bit, so managing to maintain just below 150 million. Let's take a look at the supply here. Unfortunately, again, pretty much an entire front page of new sell orders, all competing with each other to try and sell Tengus, which unfortunately, yeah, still I see overproduction, a bit of oversupply in the tech tree market, but good news, finally, the first big move has been made on one of the tactical destroyers as well, which will hopefully displace more production from the others, and thus maybe find higher prices for tech trees in general, or maybe if it's going to be harder to time the market to find those opportunities, provide opportunities for even lower prices for people that are looking for bargains. I think it's good in general that we have more tech tree ships. It means, I think, a more interesting tech tree market in general. And then finally, for the extra material, 2640, I'm going to check on the decryptors. I actually read in the trade forum, or sub forum I should say, that the decryptors have done some weird stuff. So let's take a look at that. Research equipment decryptors. Here is the, oh yeah, interesting indeed, accelerant decryptor going up from 380k up to 500k, yeah, almost. Sellers are at 501,000 is, now you'd say, well, that's pretty low price, you know, something that's not in the millions, but it's interesting, you know, definitely an increase in price here all of a sudden, and that means that high-sec data sites, wormhole data sites, could actually be a bit more interesting all of a sudden. I must say that during my exploration I have found several high-sec containers worth more than $1 million. That was quite a while, and I think that that could be because of these serious uptick here in the accelerant decryptors. Could have something to do with it. Here is the attainment decryptor, which is pretty rare, also a bit more expensive, so that one is managing to maintain a price of around 2 million. Nothing drastic to report there. It's also, I think, one that you'll find in nullsec or something like that. Attainment, you probably won't find that in highsec very often. Here's the augmentation. That one clearly broke out, starting at 300,000 ISK, ending up at 900,000 ISK, a tripling in price. It's time to get back into the data sites, I think, because to not leave those behind anymore, because that is a tripling in value of these things. Not bad at all for these decryptors. Optimized attainment decryptor, again 4 million, so that one, the expensive ones are apparently stable, but it's the cheap ones that may have gone up in price. Here is optimized augmentation, again, well, going up at the tail end here, but I think that could actually go back down and become a more stay on the average of 3.5 to 4 million. Parity decryptor next, about 1 million, still staying up there, maybe a little bit of an uptrend, but in general, you know, 1 million for these. Process decryptor, well, we see bottoms at 200,000. It's not an expensive one, but currently we're going at 440,000, so for 70, even 500,000 pretty much for the seller. So clearly the high-sec ones, the cheap decryptors, have indeed made a pretty big move here. Here is then the symmetry decryptor after a big fall off to 240, even the bottoms at 220. We are going back up towards 300,000, 330 even for the sellers in the symmetry decryptor. So very interesting, very good spot. I'm happy that I checked the trade market for that, but yeah, your high-sec data sites could actually be worth quite a little bit more, since some of those decryptors have doubled and tripled in price. So I think that's interesting information. Anyways, that's it for this Eve Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.